Dear students of class 10, welcome to you all. I like to discuss the movement after the non-cooperation. We know that due to the Chori Chora incident in 1922, the Gandhi decided to suspend the movement. I have already mentioned that an angry villagers attacked the police stations and burned the 22 police constables. And as a result of the violence, Gandhiji decided to call up the movement, or suspend the movement. Now, on 12 February 1922, Gandhiji withdrew the non-cooperation, and it was a profound shock to the national leaders like Subhash Chandra Bose, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Lala Rajput Rai. This sudden suspension completely disillusioned the national leaders and the people. Naturally, it was in this situation Gandhiji was arrested on March 19 and was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. Now, what happened after the suspension? Now, you see that the national leaders were in jail, and the leaders now see that wanted to start the movement in another way. Previously, I mentioned earlier that one of the program of the non-cooperation movement was boycotting of election and legislative council. Now see that they decided to participate in the coming election and to join the legislative council. It was you see that the concept it was actually prepared by Jawaharlal, you see the Motilal Nehru and C.R. Das. Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das and Motilal Nehru now thought a new method of political action, that is, they would participate in the coming election, and you see that participate also in the legislative council. And their idea was to carry on the continuous and consistent obstruction to the British. You see that the laws which should be issued, which should be passed, you see that against the Indians. We see that ultimately the Swarajya Party was formed with the cooperation of Khilafat Party also on 31st December 1922. Motilal Nehru and C.R. Das took initiative. They took chief initiative in founding the party. Previously, I mentioned that Congress boycotted the council election. Now they decided, some of the members, not all, to participate in the council election and join the legislative council to carry on their obstruction or opposition against the British. However, the party did not survive for long. It is C.R. Das suddenly died in 1925 after his sudden death. The Swarajya Party was a failure. Now, what happened? It is in this situation the two factors shaped Indian politics. First factor was worldwide economic depression, and second factor was appointment of Simon Commission. What was worldwide economic depression? You see that the agricultural prices, as a result of the economic depression, agricultural prices began to fall from 1926 and collapsed after 1930. As the demand of agricultural goods fell and exports declined as a result of this economic depression. Peasants found it difficult to sell their harvests and pay their revenue. So this is the economic condition prevailing in India at that time. And second one, the appointment of Simon Commission. During this time, the British government announced in 1927 an all-white royal commission under the leadership of Sir John Simon. Congress earlier demanded that some Indian members to be included in the commission, but British government refused. So, it was sent to India. Simon Commission was appointed. It was according to they wanted to see whether the Indian would be given any constitutional offer. So that's why they arrived in India in the year 1928 in Bombay, where they are greeted with black flag and the slogan, "Go back Simon." So, go back Simon Commission. Now what happened? You see that I can mention one such incident happened at that time in Lahore. The Lala Rajpat Rai was leading the procession, was severely injured by police lathi charge and later died. This was a great shock to the national leaders. However, we see that the appointment of Simon Commission was a great, the blessings for all political parties. All political parties or for our Indian national movement. It was a great blessings because all political parties, Muslim League, Hindu Mahasabha and many other parties, Congress, now joined together and all parties conference was held and at Calcutta. Now, Lord Birkenhead, the then Secretary of State for India, challenged that Indians would not be able to draft a constitution. Now I like to clarify the matter. There are, within the Congress, there are two sections are developing. One was the radical group, another one moderate group or liberal group. Who are the liberal groups like Motilal Nehru, the C.R. Das, etc. Who are the radical groups like the Subhash Chandra Bose and Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, we see that what happened. Now, meanwhile, Lord Irwin announced in 1929, it will be discussed later, is that what happened. However, I like to discuss it. Lord Irwin's announcement in 1929, a vague offer of dominion status. He announced that Indian would be given dominion status, that Indian would be given the power to rule within the British territory, and also as a round table conference would be held in London. And now this announcement failed to satisfy the radical group Congress leaders. But the liberal Congress leaders, they now decided to frame a constitution, to frame a constitution under the leadership of Motilal Nehru. It was known as Nehru Report of 1928. In this report, they proposed a constitutional system within the British framework or accepted the dominion status. And however, the Nehru Report also, there are two important aspects of the Nehru Report. One was accepted the dominion status, and secondly, it refused to accept the principle of separate electorate proposed by the Muslim League. It actually recommended joint electorate instead of separate electorate. Naturally, it was Muslim League refused to accept the Nehru Report, and ultimately it was decided that if the British government accept this offer, Nehru Report, that is the dominion status, within 1 year, then it would be accepted. However, the Lord Irwin, or British government, refused to accept the Nehru Report or refused to grant dominion status within 1929. So the radical Congress leaders, there is many incidents a Calcutta session was held in Congress of Indian National Congress, Calcutta session. You see that ultimately radical Congress leaders was not accepting the dominion status. Gandhiji persuaded them to accept it. And see that and they accepted it on condition that it would be granted within 1 year, that is by 1929. However, the British did not grant it. Actually, now under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru, on 31st December 1929, Indian National Congress made on the river, you see that Lahore. Now they unfurled the national tricolour flag, and you see that and decided to observe or celebrate 26 January 1930 as Independence Day. And also the most important thing, they adopted the pledge for Purna Swaraj, pledge for complete independence in the year 1929. Now, ultimately what happened? We see that it was decided in this Congress that civil disobedience movement will be launched under the leadership of Gandhiji. And now, this is the most important resolutions, most important actual declaration made in the Lahore Congress. Now, you see that after this, Gandhiji now appealed to Lord Irwin, placing 11 points demand. Gandhiji placed 11 points demand to the then Viceroy, Lord Irwin. One of the most important demands was the abolition of salt tax. Meanwhile, British government introduced the salt tax, and naturally it created severe discontent and anger among the Indian people. So one of the major demands of I see that the 11-point demands, one of the major demands of was abolition of salt tax. And it was to be, all the 11 points demands, reduction of land revenue and many other, to be accepted by 11th March. If it is not accepted by 11th March, then Gandhiji would launch the civil disobedience movement. However, Gandhiji was in confusion how he would launch the non-cooperation movement. Ultimately, he actually decided to launch it in the form of salt tax, violation of salt tax. So, he started the Salt March. On 12th March 1930, the historic Salt March began from Sabarmati Ashram in Gujarat or in Ahmedabad to Dundee, a village, a coastal village on the sea coast or near the sea coast. And after, you see that on that day, with 78 followers, Gandhiji started the historic march, and reached there on Dundee on 6th April. Or on 5th April, on the following day, that is 6th April, in the morning, he violated the salt tax by preparing salt by boiling seawater. This is the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. He marked the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. Now, you see that many people participated. They broke the salt law, demonstrated in front of the government salt factories. They also boycotted the foreign goods, picketed liquor shops, and also the villagers also refused to pay revenue and chowkidari tax. In this way, the movement spreading fast. Now, we see that what happened during this time. This type of movement also began in different parts of India. One was, it is the remotest corner, that is the northwestern frontier province, where the Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, popularly known as Frontier Gandhi, he also organized such movement. It is he and his followers. However, he was arrested as a protest. Satyagrahis took out procession, and on the peaceful procession, British police fired. As a result, 300 Satyagrahis died as a result of police firing. and see that this is the movement organized by Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, popularly known as Frontier Gandhi. You see that he also organized, and see that the organization called you see that the Khuda-i Khidmatgar, servants of God. Khuda-i Khidmatgar, servants of God, or also better known as red shirts. As you know that like the Garibaldi formed it in South Italy, red shirts. So it is in this way, it is when meanwhile you see that the Gandhiji was arrested, and in working class of Maharashtra in Solapur, they revolted, they attacked the government buildings and the post offices, railway stations. So Gandhiji, so it is lakhs of 1 lakh Satyagrahis were arrested, women and children were even not spared. So this is the situation, situation was very worsening day by day. So meanwhile, government now decided to discuss with the Gandhiji, and Gandhiji also agreed. So on 5th March 1931, the historic Gandhian Impact was signed. According to the Gandhian Impact, the Gandhiji decided to suspend the civil disobedience movement, and in return, see that the government also agreed to release the prisoners or Satyagrahis from jail. And also Gandhiji decided by the Gandhian Impact to participate in the round table conference. And already I have mentioned that first round table conference, which was held in London 1930, it is the Congress boycotted it. Now in the second round table conference, which was held in London, Gandhiji participated. We see that the Gandhiji went there in the hope that he would somehow find the solution, but we see that the discussion could not progress, or discuss was a failure. Negotiations was a failure due to the opposition of I should say that is the Muslim League, and also B.R. Ambedkar Hindu community, that is depressed community, etc. However, Gandhiji returned empty-handed, and now see that they decided to resume the civil disobedience movement in the year 1931. Now, when he decided to resume it, the situation was completely opposite, because new Governor General came, new Viceroy, Wellington, and Wellington actually refused to accept the Gandhian Pact. So he again arrested the Satyagrahis and put into jail. The Gandhiji protested, but it is government did not pay any heed to his request. However, we see that the Gandhiji now started the individual civil disobedience movement, and however, meanwhile, the British government, in order to create division among the different Indian communities or political parties, declared Communal Award. It was declared by British Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald. Ramsay MacDonald, year 1932 August. See that the offer was given that British government would offer or would give separate electoral rights to the Hindu, see that the Hindu depressed community, the Muslim League and other Sikh community, etc. So the purpose you can understand easily to weaken the unity among the Indians. And this is how Gandhiji was at that time in jail, in Yeravada jail in Pune. Gandhiji decided to Gandhiji actually resorted to fast until death. And however, in order to save his life, B.R. Ambedkar and others came forward and signed the Puna Pact in September 1932. By the Puna Pact, is that ultimately Gandhiji or the Indian National Congress leaders agreed to give the Hindu, the Hindu depressed community 145 seats in the legislative councils. And this is how the situation was shaped, and thus ended the civil disobedience movement. Meanwhile, gradually the response from the people was dying, it was gradually declining, and Gandhiji ultimately decided to withdraw the movement in 1934, and officially it is a working class, I should say Indian National Congress, Indian National Congress decided to suspend the movement or withdraw the movement in the year 1934. This is the end of the civil disobedience movement. And now we see that the next class I shall discuss how the different social groups like the peasant community, the big landlords, and also the business community, the merchants, and the working class, see that they participated in the movement. Why did they participate in the movement, and what was their interest? Thank you all.